2020 Philippine Airlines welcomes you.
Republic Act Number 1478. An act to create the Board of Travel and Tourist Industry, defining its powers, duties, and responsibilities and for other purposes. Section 1. There is hereby created a Board of Travel and Tourist Industry to regulate international travel and tourism with a view to the development of a prosperous Philippine tourist industry. Section 2. The Board shall have the following responsibilities and duties. It shall coordinate the activities of all agencies of the government which concern international travel and tourism. Section 3. To carry out the aims and purposes of this Act, a tax shall be collected on all fares of passengers leaving the country as well as fares for those returning or coming in. Section 4. This tax shall be collected from the passengers by the carriers and the travel agencies issuing foreign travel passenger tickets, and they, in turn, shall remit their collections within the first 10 days of every succeeding quarter to the Board of Travel and Tourist Industry. Section 5. An amount not in excess of 50% of such collections and all those which may be affected under Section 6 shall accrue to the funds of the Board to be spent under its authority exclusively for the development of tourist facilities and the promotion of tourism both within the country and abroad. Section 6. The Board shall regulate travel agency business, prescribing the necessary rules to be govern their establishment and operation. Section 7. In the exercise of its supervisory powers over facilities and services catering to or having anything to do with foreign travelers and tourists, the Board shall prescribe rules and regulations for their operation and maintenance. Section 8. For the purpose of strengthening the competitive position of the Philippines in the field of international tourism, the President of the Philippines, upon recommendation of the Board, may suspend the payment of visa and visa application fees for foreign tourists and travelers coming to the Philippines. Section 9. The Philippine Tourist and Travel Association Incorporation, which under its Charter Republic Act numbered 710, is the exclusive agency of the government in the promotion of the tourist industry. Section 10. The Board shall pass upon the requirements of the said association and make available out of its revenues, as provided for in Section 5 and 6, above such sums may be necessary for carrying out its program of activities. Section 11. The Board of Travel and Tourist Industry shall 5 days before the opening of the regular sessions of Congress submit to Congress a verified detailed report of its collections, disbursements, and activities. Section 12. All provisions of law contrary to the provisions of this Act or are inconsistent with its aims and objectives are hereby repealed.
The fundamental rights of salaried and self-employed workers in the tourism industry and related activities should be guaranteed under the supervision of the national and local administrations. Salaried and self-employed workers in the tourism industry and related activities have the right and the duty to acquire appropriate initial and continuous training. Any natural or legal person, provided he, she, or it has the necessary abilities and skills, should be entitled to develop and professionals. Exchanges of experience offered to executive and workers, whether salaried or not, from different countries contribute to foster the development of the world tourism industry. As an irreplaceable factor of solidarity in the development and dynamic growth of international exchanges, multinational enterprise of the tourism industry should not exploit the dominant position. Partnership in the establishment of balanced relation between enterprises of generating and receiving countries contribute to the sustainable development of tourism. an inequitable distribution of benefits of its growth.
Pag natapos siguro itong pandemya na po, unti-unti naging sisig lang ang Pilipinas para sa turismo po.
Ngayon na nagkakaroon na ng linaw ang bagay na ito, unti-unti nang nakikita natin sa mukha ng mga tao ang kislap ng kanilang mga mata at ngiti.
Airlines and home hills that turn brown during the summer. Chocolate Hills are found in the island province of Bohol, which is also the home of one of the smallest primates in the world, the Philippine tarsier. The honeycombs of the Sagada and the Bambari rice terraces are worth a visit in the northern Philippines. The rice terraces were carved out of mountains thousands of years ago and by far the most expensive of its kind in the world with sophisticated irrigation and engineering that was unthinkable during the time it was built. The Albertine, one of the smallest active volcanoes in the world, sits on a lake and is not far away from Manila. The fresh blue air of the Tagaytay Lake provides a spectacular view of the lake and the volcano. Visitors should compare whether hiking to the is safe or not before attempting to do so. North of Manila, take the rock road and go to Mount Pinatubo, the volcano which caused a massive eruption in 1991. Now you can marvel at the volcano up close and swim inside its crater. The last eruption was one of the biggest during the last century. In the world, the global temperature there at least a degree. The 100 Islands, also located in the northern Philippines. It's a group of more than 400 islands with coral reefs surrounding the islands. These islands are famous for their beaches and the coral reefs which can be explored by snorkeling. About 2,000 years ago, mountains in northern Luzon were carved by indigenous people to form what is now the Banao Rice Terrace. The rice terrace covers 4,000 square miles of mountainside. The Banao Rice Terrace is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. The province of Palawan is one of the most beautiful islands in the South China Sea. Palawan has natural gas fields in the northeastern part of the island, but the beautiful beaches around the island remain pristine. The island is home to the spectacular Tubata-Haring and the breathtaking Puerto Princesa Santorini River National Park, both UNESCO World Heritage Sites. Boracay Island is one of the most popular tourist destinations in the country. The island boasts a 4-kilometer stretch of white sand beach, considered to be the best beach in
El Nido has been named a number of times by travel publication sites as the best island beach in the world because of its paradise-like attractions with white sand, turquoise water, vibrant coral reefs, and stunning limestone cliffs. El Nido is the gateway to awe-inspiring Backways archipelago, which houses 45 islands and islets, each with its own unique geological formations. It is no wonder that El Nido has been ranked consistently as one of the best island destinations, not just in the Philippines but in the world. Based on the article on Finstar.com titled El Nido Posts Progress in Sustainable Tourism Initiatives. According to the chef of the Department of Tourism, El Nido Palawan is making success in its restoration efforts as it continues to employ more sustainable tourism practices. We want our tourists to feel clean and safe when they visit our country. El Nido's renovation began last year in response to unsustainable tourism activities and environmental degradation. During her recent tour of the town, Puyat noticed that the municipal and provincial administrations are gradually developing sewage and solid waste treatment plants, and that the owner of structures that violate the proper easement zones along the shorelines are self-demolishing during her recent tour of the town. Under the Tourism Act of 2009, along with the DILG and DNR chefs, she also worked hard to help restore other destinations, including El Nido, Panglao, Siargao, and Coron, among others. El Nido Resorts is committed to providing leisurely, engaging, and educational experiences and services to all our guests in a manner that has the least impact on the environment and promotes respect for El Nido's local people and culture. The acronym GREEN stands for Guard, Respect, Educate El Nido. Under the program, they have streamlined hotel processes to adapt to changing needs of the new normal, linking with the local communities through employment and purchases, nurturing a culture of environmental stewardship.
So, the Article 1, or the tourism's contribution to mutual understanding and respect between peoples and societies. So first is the understanding and promotion of ethical values common to humanity with an attitude of tolerance and respect for the diversity of religious, philosophical, and moral beliefs are both the foundation and the consequence of the responsible tourism. Stakeholders in tourism development and tourists themselves should observe the social and cultural traditions and practice of all peoples, including those of the minorities and indigenous peoples, and to recognize their worth. Second, tourism activities should be conducted in harmony with the attributes and traditions of the host regions and countries and in respect for the laws, practice, and customs. Third, the host communities on the one hand and local professionals on the other should acquaint themselves with respect the tourists who visit them and find out their lifestyles, tastes, and expectations. The education and training imparted to professionals contribute to a hospitable welcome. So the fourth is, it is a task of the public authorities to provide protection for tourists and visitors and their belongings. They must pay particular attention to the safety of the foreign tourists owing to the particular vulnerability they may have. They should facilitate the introduction of specific means of information, prevention, security, insurance, and assistance consistent with their needs of any attacks, assaults, kidnappings, or threat against tourists or workers in the tourism industry, as well as the willful destruction of tourism facilities or of elements of culture or natural heritage should be severely condemned and punished in accordance with the respective national laws. So the fifth one is, when traveling, tourists and visitors should not commit any criminal act or any considered criminal by the laws of the country visited and abstain for any conduct felt to be offensive or injurious by the local populations or likely to damage the local environment. They should refrain from all trafficking in illicit drugs, arms, antiques, protected species, and products and substances that are dangerous or prohibited by the national regulations. And lastly, tourists and visitors have the responsibility to acquaint themselves even before their departure with the characteristics of the countries they are preparing to visit. They must be aware of the health and security risks inherent in any travel outside their usual environment and behave in a such way as to minimize those risks.
And here I am today to discuss about Article 4 in the tourism of the user of the cultural heritage of mankind and contributor to its enhancement. So the tourism resources belong to the common heritage of mankind. So the communities in whose territories they are situated and have the particular rights and obligation to them. So the tourism policies and activities should be conducted and respect for for the artists, archaeological, and cultural heritage, which they should be protected and passed on the future generation, and particularly care should be devoted and presenting, upgrading monuments, shrines, and museum as well as archaeological and historic sites, which must be widely open to tourist visits, and encouragement should be given to the public access and the private owner, and as well as to the religious buildings without the prejudice and normal needs of worship. So the financial and resources derived from the visits and cultural sites and the monument should be at least in a part and used for the upkeep and safeguard development and establishment of this heritage. So that's all for today.
The Republic Act 9003, an act providing an ecological solid waste management program, creating a necessary institutional mechanisms and incentives, declaring a certain acts prohibited and providing penalties, and appropriating funds and the other purposes. First, we need to ensure the protection of our public health and environment, and utilize environmentally sound methods and encourage resource conservation and recovery. So we need to set guidelines and targets for the solid waste avoidance and volume reduction through source reduction and waste minimization measures, including composting, recycling, reuse, recovery, grain charcoal process, and others. And ensure the proper segregation, collection, transport, storage, treatment, and disposal through the formulation and adoption of the best environmental practice in ecological waste management, excluding incineration. And let's promote national research and development programs to improve solid waste management, to have effective institutional arrangement, to improve methods of waste reduction, collection, separation, and recovery, and encourage greater private sector participation in solid waste management. Retain primary enforcement and responsibility of solid waste management with local government units, and establishing cooperative efforts among the national government, other local government units, non-government organizations, and the private sector. Encourage cooperation and self-regulation among waste generators through the application of market-based instruments. Institutionalize public participation in the development and implementation of national and local integrated, comprehensive, and ecological waste management program, and strengthen the integration of ecological solid waste management and resource conservation and recovery.